This just in, Minecraft is legal in Finland! Hello everybody, and welcome to a second Redstone video. As you can see, there's quite a bit that we're going to be going through, but it's going to go by pretty quickly because a lot of it is pretty simple. First of all, we're going to finish off the logic gates because I actually forgot a gate. There is the nonly gate, or the n-only gate. Basically all it is the reverse of an only gate, because if you remember from last time, the only gate only turns on when A is the only one on. Whereas for this, it's always on unless A is on. And just kind of look at the circuitry. It's basically an only gate, but it has a repeater here instead of a torch like over here. Nothing too crazy there. So it only turns off when you flip this, and only this. So personally, I think it has less uses than the only gate, but it's still useful. But let's talk about something completely and utterly useless, which is XAND, XNAND, XOnly, and XNonly. Why didn't I talk about them? Why am I not going to build them? Because they are completely pointless and technically aren't even logic gates. An XNAND is actually just an insulator. No matter what you input into an XNAND gate, it will always be off. An XAND gate is a power source. No matter what you put into it, it's never going to turn on or off. It's never going to turn off. It's going to always be on. An X-only gate completely ignores input B. Input B doesn't do anything. It affects nothing. It's literally just a NOT gate for input A. Same thing with an X-only gate. It's an input-output gate for input A. It only affects that. So those four gates are not useful. Sorry, my alarm just went off and I had to cut the video. My alarm for Game of Thrones, yay! I'm recording this on Sunday. Game of Thrones. It's very good. Now, let's talk about the four different kinds of pressure plate. First of all, you have the stone pressure plate, which can only be activated by players or mobs, as opposed to the wooden pressure plate, which can be activated by that, but can also be activated by items, which is very nice. Now, there are other kinds of pressure plates that can be activated by items and mobs, which is the weighted pressure plates. If I stand on it, you see this one lights up, but that one doesn't. The more items that get thrown on here... Oops, I just picked up the stuff. The more items that get thrown on here, you see, because I put two different items on there, it went to 2 signal strength and lit up this lamp. And if you put 2 creepers on here, for example, it would light up that lamp. So that could be useful for a mob grinder. Maybe, I guess. If you want a specific number of mobs for some reason. Now, this is very similar, although it uses much bigger numbers. You see, I throw this on here, and I throw a second thing on here, but nothing happens. That's because I need at least 11 people, 11 mobs, or 11 items on here for this to finally output to. This is the heavy one made with iron versus the light one made with gold. The light one is much more expensive because gold is way more hard to find in the world. Now let's move on to dispensers and droppers. Now this is a dispenser, and a dispenser, I have a spawn skeleton in here. As you can see, that lit up while the skeleton was there. The dispenser can actually use a lot of the items that are in there. So let me go ahead and show you a little list I made of all the things it can do. It can equip any armor onto a player or onto an armor stand that is placed next to it. This includes shields if you're in 1.10 or higher. It can fire arrows and fire charges, so that's pretty nice if you want to have an automatic base defense kind of thing. It can use buckets to collect water and lava or place water and lava. It can place boats, it can place minecarts, it can use spawn eggs, as you just saw. It can bone meal grass, and it can bone meal plants that are growable, such as saplings and wheat and stuff like that. It can use fireworks. It can place them there and it'll fly up and explode. It can use flint and steel to light things on fire. It can place TNT and ignite it when it places it. It can place pumpkins. Wow, I'm bad at spelling. It can place pumpkins and mob heads. Wow, I have the hiccups. It can place pumpkins and mob heads. It can throw down splash potions, lingering potions, snowballs, eggs, and bottles of enchanting. Everything else, it's as if you did that to it. Now let's talk about droppers. You might think droppers are just a crappy version of dispensers, which for the most part they are, although they have one very, very useful feature. Here we have all this crazy stuff in here that we're showing off in this little, like right up to here, I think, in this area. And normally it would just drop it on the ground like you just saw. But instead it threw it up into here. And let me press that a couple more times. As you can see, it's completely random what it chooses from here. This is the same for the dispenser. If you put multiple things in there, it randomly chooses from one of the stacks. Now, this does not just work with chests. If you face the dropper into another dropper, it'll drop it in. If you face it into a dispenser or a hopper, it'll drop it in. It really doesn't matter. If there is an item with an inventory above, or not above the dropper, but that the dropper is facing into, for example, if I put this here and hit it, it would go into that chest. Then that would happen. It would go into the inventory. Now, let's talk about pistons. Pistons are pretty easy to get a hold of because regular pistons push out, retract, and they can push blocks. They can also push players. That's about it. Whereas a sticky piston, you saw this was up here, but then when it retracted, it could not pull it back. Sticky pistons pull things back. Although there is a limit to this, because if it is, I do believe, a one-tick pulse, it will be so fast that the sticky piston will actually unstick from the lock and it'll stay up in the air, which is useful for certain things. Now let's move on to the daylight sensor. Daylight sensor is really cool. You can actually invert the daylight sensor by right-clicking on it to make it a nighttime sensor, although it is a little different in how it works with the light levels for a nighttime, a nightlight sensor, I guess is a good word for it. So I'm just going to be talking about what it works as a daylight sensor because very few people ever use it as a nighttime sensor. At midday, which is right now, it has full strength. It goes all 15 blocks and then stops 16. And it takes until T equals 22,340, which is pretty late in the night. It's really, really late in the night, actually, for it to go all the way down to 1 signal strength, and then I think there's one point at which it finally puts out no signals. Inverted is roughly opposite to this, although the numbers are different because it is sensing the lack of light, so it gets a little weird. This is affected by rain and thunder. Let me put that back. Rain, thunder. I'm very lazy today. It is affected by rain and thunder, so if it's raining, it'll be different. If it's thundering, it'll be different. On the Minecraft wiki, there is a page on this, and it will tell you a big old chart of all the different values and all the different times and rain and thunder and everything for the daylight and nightlight sensor in all weather conditions. So if you want to know everything, I'm not going to show it off here, but you can find it on the Minecraft wiki. Next off, we are looking at redstone blocks. Now, redstone blocks are made, of course, with redstone, and unlike the redstone torch, which can be inverted if a block that power is sent to is inverted, a redstone block is always on. It is never not on. It is basically the, what is it, XAND or XNAND or whatever that we said over there. That's basically what this is. No matter what you do to it, it is always going to be on. It is always going to output a full signal. So this can be useful for a number of different contraptions, which again, I'm not going to get into because I'm just kind of introducing a lot of basics. Here we have the different kinds of openable and closable things. Now, these three can be opened and closed without a lever, but these two cannot, the iron versions. Although for some reason this one I can... Oh, whoops. Yeah, for some reason that one, my arm is moving. I don't know why. That might be a glitch. I don't know. I'm not that bright. Next off, we are moving on to these little guys. Not those guys yet. These guys. These are note blocks. They are activated with redstone. You can also fine-tune them with the right-click button. And one thing about note blocks is as you can see there, if I block what's above it, it cannot make noise. So that's another useful thing to know. You can't place blocks on top of it, otherwise it cannot output. Whoops. Finally, last but not least, we have the what do you call them? Tripwire hooks. Woo! As you saw, I was using a dispenser. Now the tripwire hooks are placed on blocks, and you place string between. I just placed string on top. Whoops. You place string between the two, and they connect. And when you step on the string, it activates redstone signal. I don't know exactly what strength the redstone signal is, because I did not look into that because I'm an idiot. And I will explain why this does this. Probably not next episode, but the episode after. Alright, I changed my mind. The episode is way too short, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to more stuff. First of all, I'm going to move on to trapped chests versus normal chests. Now, if you're playing in Minecraft and you're going to open a chest, one of the first things you want to do is see, is it a little bit red around the latch? Because if it is a trapped chest, and more than likely it is hooked up to something. So let me just go ahead and set something up to show you exactly how a trap chest interacts with redstone around it, because it was a little confusing for me at first. So let me go ahead and set something up to show you exactly how it works. Alrighty, I have set up a little mechanism to kind of show you exactly how trap chests work. While a person is opening it, it is going to power any. First of all, let me set that to full so you can see that. Any repeaters coming out of it, any redstone dust below or next to it, but it will only power it to 1 power. So if I were to do this, see that, well, you see that does not get powered at all because this is only powered to 1, but that down there is powered. Now going over to this one, it also powers that piston that's above it, the block below it, which means that the repeater can pull power out of the block below it. Now basically, anything that you put next to this chest will activate. Regardless of whether it's a piston or, any output block basically will activate when this is open. And if there are 2 people opening it, it will actually output 2. If there are 3, it'll output 3, etc., etc. But right now we only have 1 person, so, I can't really test that out, unfortunately. So I can't really show you that, but I can tell you that that is a thing that happens. Moving on now, we are going to go to hoppers. Hopper. Hoppers are really fun. Basically, let's say that you have a chest. You have a chest up there, and you're like, oh, I want to get something from chest A to chest B because automation. Well, let's just throw something in chest A. It goes through the hopper and into chest B. Woo! Same thing goes for any hopper going into the side, although this is slightly different for specific things. For example, if you do that into a furnace, the top input will go into the smelting area, whereas the bottom input will go into the fuel area. And anything that comes out of the bottom of it will be the stuff that is the result. For example, the top would be where you would put your iron. The sides will be where you would put your coal or wood or whatever. And then the bottom is where all of the smelted iron would come out, if this were a furnace. Now, you can actually lock hoppers. If I were to do this and then throw something in here, you can see it's not moving. And this isn't moving either. But when I unpower it, they all move into there. Same thing goes for if I do that with a repeater. If I try to throw something in here, nothing's going to happen until the repeater gets unpowered, sending something down here. Alright, sorry about that. I had to cut some footage. One thing that you can actually do with hoppers is really neat. You can make a hopper clock. Now, longer hopper clocks do involve a lot more redstone, and I will get into how to make a hopper clock a lot later. However, you can actually lock the clock with a redstone signal, and that's part of how you do the hopper clock is, let's say you have, one in here, you have 63 in here. All the 60 whatever will filter out into here. Whoops. All that will filter into there. And then what you do is you have redstone hooked up to switch which is on and which is off so that it filters into the other one, and like it sends out a redstone pulse every time that it's full. So that's actually pretty neat. That's another thing that you can do with hoppers, but again, that requires a lot more redstone than I have here, and it's a lot more complicated, so I will get to exactly how to make better hopper clocks than a, bajillionth of a second hopper clock later. Now, one of the last few things I want to cover is quasi-connectivity. Quasi-connectivity is weird because it's only a property of these 4 redstone outputs. And as you can see, this redstone repeater is facing into the block above this piston, same with all the others. It's the block above. And there's nothing in the block above. But for some reason, when it's powered, they all get powered. And that's a little bit weird because, there's nothing above these blocks, so it shouldn't, put power into something which puts power into this. It's putting power into thin air, which somehow is connecting to this. And this is just a bit of a weird property of redstone that officially works as intended, although it's technically a bug, but it officially works as intended. Next thing that I want to go over real quick is a brand new feature and or bug with pistons. As you can see, that piston actually just pulled me. It pulled me right through the piston. And the reason for this is because pistons, while they retract and while they extend, temporarily don't exist. The actual piston itself kind of stops existing for a couple ticks, which is long enough to pull entities through it, such as the player, mobs, etc. And that could be very useful for lots of different automated farms with different mobs and stuff. Oh my gosh, take 5. Take 5. Oh boy. Ugh. This is the 5th time that I've tried to explain this. Okay, so strong versus weak power versus output power. So you have strong power. Strong power can do 2 things. It can power dust, and it can power output power. Now basically, output power means it can power the block next to it, but the block next to it cannot send power out to anything. So it can power this output right here. If I replace out the sticky piston, it could output that, but it cannot send the signals through the output. A strong block can also send signal through this redstone wire. The redstone wire is sending signal to this block. However, that makes it a weak powered block. A weak powered block is a block that has redstone signal running into it, and it can send output power, but it cannot send power to other redstone dust. For that to work, you need to pull the power out of the weakly powered block with a repeater, which sends out the power. You actually saw this a little bit earlier with this design. The reason that I cannot just put dust here is because this is a weakly powered block. I have to pull power out of it with a repeater, which again sends stuff to here. And as you can see, this dust is going in here. This is a weakly powered block. I can, put output power through that. Now, putting this in a more compact form, this is strongly powered. It can send out output power, but it cannot, the output power cannot send out output power. So that's a thing. And finally, on my 5th try, or 4th try, or whatever, I was able to explain this without messing up. So let's move on to the end of the video finally. But that's right about where I'm going to end this episode. Next time we are going to be going into comparators, which is going to take a while. And I don't actually know what I'm going to do after comparators because there's a lot of really cool redstone stuff that I want to get to, but I don't know what order I want to do it in. And there's a lot of weird stuff that I have to get through first because redstone is weird in places, but yeah, next time we are going to get into comparators at the very least. So hope you enjoyed this pretty simple video, except for like a few of the things at the end. And yeah, leave a like, subscribe, all that jazz, and don't get shot, I guess, by your own redstone contraption, unless you're in creative, in which case I won't shoot you for some reason. So, yeah, hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye!